name's Rob Nelson. I'm assistant curator here at Stuhr Museum.
Kari Stofer, I'm the curator at Stuhr Museum.
And we're going to be walking you through the Celebrating Women exhibit right now. It's an exhibit that features 16 quilts from a traveling exhibit that goes all around Nebraska. And without much further ado, let's get started.
All right, Rob. So we have a quilt here that is by Pannell from Ashland, Nebraska. And she's celebrating the work of Miriam Shapiro.
Yeah, absolutely. Personally, I don't know very much about it, of Miriam Shapiro's work, that is. But what blows me away about this quilt is just how intricate everything is. And, you know, there's so much happening in it, and I can just see the incredible amount of work and detail that went into creating this piece.
Mm-hmm. I think she does a really good job. Miriam Shapiro did a lot of work with collage and paper and textiles, so she's really got a basis for what Miriam's done. Little play on the colors is it's a little lighter and brighter, but the detail and the amount of work that went in to pick all the individual textiles, and you've got lace, you've got buttons, you've got silk, cotton. There's just basically every kind of textile that you can have in here.
How much time do you think somebody would have dedicated to doing this?
Oh my gosh.
Like if you did one piece a day.
Well, we'd have to call Peg and ask her.
Yeah.
But I would think that true artists that do this, probably doesn't take as long as you would think. I can't imagine getting this done in a year for myself.
Yeah, and that's kind of what blows me away by it is, you know, I wasn't necessarily expecting to get so into quilt making as I have in the last 18 months that I've been working at Stuhr Museum, but the process involved in the time commitment that it takes, I'm incredibly blown away with this as somebody who does a lot of writing, and I know how, you know, complex that process can take. This, I kind of see that mirrored in a completely different medium, but painstakingly repetitive, doing things over and over and over again for months or years.
And yet each piece being creative and individual too.
Yes, absolutely.
And so, yeah, there's no downtime. And she's done something that Mimi Shapiro did too, which is you can see some embellishments and you can see some applique, some embroidery and all that stuff. So you have to have all of those skills in order to get all of that down.
It's definitely a piece worth celebrating.
So this is another quilt that has a lot of detail and also includes the embellishments. And it is by Diane, Duncan, Thomas, and she's from Omaha, Nebraska, celebrating Frida, which Frida is a big, I guess, personality in the history of women's suffrage and the women's movement, and really expressive and really showing somebody who stepped out of the norm and stepped out of her body in a certain way to go ahead and express ideas that were not as common for maybe it is for me to express today.
You know, once in a generation, there are a handful of artists, I think, that kind of transcend their individuality, I guess. I feel like Frida Kahlo is one of those people. She's a pop culture icon. She's so much more than just an artist. You know, everyone knows who she is by the eyebrows. Everyone knows who she is by the artwork that she created. But the larger story of it is that she did this, you know, largely without the use of part of her body.
Right.
A bus accident that left her permanently disabled. She lost a leg as a result of the injury.
She had polio when she was a child.
Exactly.
So her lifelong disability that she really had to work through. And she really kind of, in her relationships and her life, really chose different paths. She married Diego Rivera.
Exactly.
And they had a really amazing life of trauma and heartfelt experiences and renewal and all of those things. So she really is an incredible person in history. And I think this quilt really shows the color and vibrancy. And to know that a woman could create that much color and that much vibrancy and energy when most of the time she's laying from her bed at home is, I think, inspirational.
This quilt, I think, is unique just in terms of this exhibit and its 3D components. I don't see any other ones that kind of have that, the flowers that are, physically above the rest of the quilt. How would somebody have, again, just individually sewn on in each of these flowers, or what kind of process did they use to do?
I would imagine that everything is sewn on. We'd have to probably touch and examine. But yeah, no, I would imagine she's taken each embellishment and found the places where she can secure it, which is what is amazing is that you really can't tell.
Yeah.
So you're not seeing any threads, you're not seeing any glue. They really look very seamless coming out of the quilt, like they've just landed there. It's really something you should see in person.
Exactly. So this quilt here that we have in front of us is actually the only quilt that doesn't come from the Celebrating Women Traveling exhibit. This item was recently acquired by Stuhr Museum just last year into our permanent collection. And we wanted, as a museum, to incorporate this quilt into the exhibit because we wanted to add something to this show from our own collection that kind of celebrated women from the Hall County community. This exhibit comes from the family of Agnes. Sorry, I'm going to say that again.
Yep.
This quilt comes to us from Elizabeth Agnes Thompson, who actually constructed this quilt around 1900. But it's actually made from materials from as late as the 1850s. The pink patterns that you see here were constructed from babies' dresses from the 1850s. And what's truly unique about this quilt is the family story and the family legacy that it portrays. Elizabeth Agnes Thompson was the great-great-grandmother of the donors of this quilt. And she used the baby dresses of the donor's great-grandmother, and through a line of 5 generations of procession, the quilt ultimately ended up in the hands of 3 sisters from Hastings. And it's just it's really an honor to kind of have this quilt available for everyone to see, because you just don't see something that's 150 years old in places routinely.
Yeah, you don't see something of this quality and this good of shape that's been passed down and loved by several women and their families. It was given during marriages, through family times, good and bad, and so it really has lived those many years, and it's in such great shape, and it really shows the strength and resilience, I think, in fabric and also in celebrating women. This, again, is something you should come in and see in person, but the different lines, they're absolutely perfect. And you have to imagine this being made, this wasn't made with all the fancy rulers.
Sure.
And all the, different things you can get to help with quilting nowadays. This was hand sewn, hand pieced together, and using whatever they had available. And it's still an absolutely gorgeous piece.
I just, I can't help but imagine I don't want to say the history, but just how much this probably was a part of 5 different generations of people. It had to have been used on a cold day like today and wrapped up with and taken from house to house. But each generation of women clearly cared enough about the history of their own family to maintain this as best they could, and it's so fitting that it ends up in a museum where it can be cared for forever.
Forever and ever. Yep, and as the family grows, those family members will always have a place to come and see it preserved.
Exactly.
And never lost. All right, and we have this quilt, which is a really beautiful piece. celebrating the Haudenosaunee, which is a group of 5 different tribes that have been around probably, there's actually no beginning date. They've been around forever. And their whole purpose is to provide their tribes. They each have their individual tribes, but they come together to have peaceful resolution, peaceful interaction, peaceful democracy. It's one of the earliest democracies that you can really find. And of course, that involved women. It involved finding out how the women work in a society, how to have that peaceful working. Women teach our children. They teach our leaders. They teach our justice makers. And so really, I think that's what this quilt is celebrating. It's by Deborah Ebke from Duncan, Nebraska. And just to, I think she's got some great imagery. And obviously the words, sisters in spirit. And then what's really nice is that she's included some differences between the Haudenosaunee and the Euro-Americans and how the different democracies work. And so it's really kind of more of a, more of a political and more of an academic look, and yet using artwork and color and all the symbolism to bring that out into the real world.
Yeah, the women's suffrage movement of this era, the early 20th century, drew on a lot of information from various Native American tribes who had a completely different social structure than the United States did during this time. Various Native American tribes, valued women in such a way that was completely reversed from early American history. The children followed the Mother's Clan. They were a member of the Mother's Clan. Women had responsibilities and duties within the tribe that were equal to men completely. They had a say in political affairs. They had a seat at the table in so many ways, and they were valued equally. And that's what I think this quilt is trying to say is trying to bridge that gap and to really use what the feminists of the early 20th century pursued. I don't know.
No, I can piece it together, no problem.
The women of the early 20th century looked to Native American cultural aspects to influence their cause, I guess.
And I think one of the things that, a lot of these quilts, they look at history and they look at how women have influenced our culture, our society, getting our right to vote for a lot of people and continuing, civil justice. And that kind of looks towards, we're sisters in spirit, regardless of our sex or our race or any of those things, and kind of looking to this as a format to use as a template for going forward, and something, that can inform us and to not just look at the past, but to look at our future as well.
Absolutely.